Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we are on my free-to-play, my alternative account that has almost 2,000 collection level, and we're gonna be running a She-Hulk deck. I got very lucky and I was able to pull She-Hulk from the collector shop. I also pulled one other Series 4 card on this account that I'm gonna build around, but for today we are going to be building around She-Hulk. Now, we already know that DeathWave was already very consistent. It was already very strong, but it does have a power cap. It has a cap power of about 20 power on that last turn, which is pretty decent for not having to skip any turns and limiting the opponent to one card. But She-Hulk enhances that even further. We can hit a very big upside of being able to, if we can destroy 4 cards throughout the game and not just 2, we can do wave into a Chavez, She-Hulk, and Death on that final turn after dropping wave when the opponent can only drop 1 card for an insane power deficit that we can then spread out across the board. So it makes this deck even more flexible. Outside of the normal Death Wave, I picked up the Green Goblin from KM Best. He used that and I believe a Debris to add some kind of counterplay to the opponent so that you can block out some of their location so that they can't copy all of the cards that you drop on that final turn if they play a leader. But otherwise, it is a very standard Death Wave. You're wanting to destroy at least 2 cards, or 4 if you have She-Hulk in hand, and if you can do that, then you can have a really big last turn play that your opponent's not typically going to be able to keep up with. And so, since Death Wave is a pretty standard deck, I'm not going to go into too much depth about any of the individual cards. We're just going to go ahead and jump into the gameplay, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, first up we have ITK Ovian, I think. The first location is the raft, so we're actually going to push to cap that location out before destroying the cards that we have there. That's going to give us a free card that we can drop on turn 5 if we draw into wave. That way we can still kind of get the upside if they get the free one as well. We might be able to kind of swing it where if they don't drop it on 5 because they're not anticipating the wave, we can kind of outmaneuver them. And so here, I think we're actually going to waste our demon. We could play Deathlok and then start destroying some of these cards, but actually, no, we should have. That would have been much better. We could have played Deathlok last turn. It would have cleared this, left 2, and then we could have played Killmonger and then Demon. But at least they played Cosmo. That gives us a little bit of upside where we wouldn't have had it before. Now we don't have our wave, we don't have our death, and we're only going to draw into 1 additional card here. So I'm actually going to play our She-Hulk this turn. The odds are we're not going to be able to play our wave, and if we do, we don't really get much upside out of it, since we can already play our She-Hulk onto the board. And so let's go ahead and play that. We're going to get a free 6 cost card in return. Maybe we get something pretty strong. Maybe. That's fitting. That's very fitting. We end up getting She-Hulk, which we will absolutely take. And right now it looks like they have the win condition. However, we do have Nova, we do have Carnage, so we're going to be able to destroy that. We will buff this one up by 4 more, and so we're going to let them think that they have the win condition. We're not going to destroy or use the Nova just yet, but we are going to play it into the vault just in case they use an armor in Kunlun. But otherwise, we have a very easy win condition here by buffing up our cards by 4. We're actually going to play the She-Hulk into the vault this turn because we're not going to be able to play cards there next turn. And so we're going to play the second She-Hulk and Nova and the Green Goblin to send them cards this way. Next turn, we will end up doing something like maybe a Deathlok and a Killmonger to give us an 8 power push in Kunlun, but our win condition is going to be the raft and the vault. And so they didn't even play anything into Kunlun. So very interesting. If they have something that... I was going to say if they have something that goes wide, they won't be able to win this one. However, I forgot that they had Cosmo. And so Jessica Jones isn't going to be able to buff up, even though they didn't play a card there. They now can't play this turn. They locked down Kunlun as a kind of counter measure. And I guess probably not realizing that Jessica Jones wasn't going to buff herself up either. And so we get the cheeky 4 cubes out of it. Not a fantastic win, but it is a win nonetheless. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Zoo and Fro. Is that like to and fro? I don't know. I could be wrong. We're going to go ahead and play our Nova. Next turn, we might even just play our Carnage. Just go ahead and play it out onto the board. On turn 3, we'd be able to do Green Goblin to negatively impact them in Asgard. But we do have the Hood. I think we stay the course here. I think we go ahead and play our Carnage. We get the destruction where we can, just in case they try to protect it. Next turn, we send them the Green Goblin. We're going to try to push Asgard really, really hard, because that's going to let us almost guarantee draw into our Wave, our Death, and we already have She-Hulk in hand. That way we can get the big upside from this game. And we actually have an additional turn now with the Limbo location. And so I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to get through our entire deck as long as we win Asgard. We're going to be able to get all of the resources that we need. Now, they are running a movement deck, so they have a pretty big power push. It's just a matter of if we can outmaneuver them. And even if not, we have the additional turn to draw into our Wave, our Death. I'm going to play the Hood and Killmonger. I'm just going to go for an additional 3 in Asgard, and we will see from there. If they play here, they do. They play here very, very heavily. So they play a multiple man and a Nightcrawler. We could have matched their power had we dropped our Yondu. Oh no, we actually did drop we did match their power because we destroyed their Nightcrawler. Now they will be able to play an additional card here, but so will we. They can also start moving those cards, but they can't move anything into Fisk Tower because they are running a movement deck. And so dropping anything into Limbo puts them very, very susceptible. They can't pull a Vulture over with something like Doctor Strange and then push it back because it would destroy it here. So they're pretty limited in what they're able to do and win. Now we can play Death. We could play Death right now, but I think we're just going to drop our Demon and our Yondu. We've already dropped our Killmonger. We're going to start padding Limbo just a little bit, and then we can really heavily invest into Fisk Tower if we need to. Now, actually, we're not going to be able to do all of the things, because next turn we're going to draw into our Chavez. So even if we drew into something, even if we drew into Wave on this final turn, we're not going to be able to find the full upside. So I'm going to go ahead and play our Death into Asgard. I don't think they're going to be able to have a really, really big push here. We're going to play Death into Asgard. I think that, I think they tried to drop a sneaky win on us. So now the way that this works is if Limbo is changed, previously the cubes would not double in that location. However, after the last patch, they updated that, and so even though it says Final 2, it now actually truly doubles it like it should. It was a glitch before, but now even though they changed the Limbo location and surprisingly ended the game on 6 instead of 7, we had the win condition in 2 lanes. We were able to hold down the win. We got the 4 cubes. Again, not a traditional game. Let's jump over into the next one. See if we can get a traditional in-game gameplay. All right, next up we have Juice. And the first location is Mirror Dimension, so that will eventually turn into one of the other locations. We're going to go ahead and play our Hood into the Mirror Dimension. We plan on destroying it. Ooh, and it looks like they're running a destruction deck as well. Now, our Chavez is destroyed, but we can still potentially do 3 cards on the last turn. It just won't have as high as a power ceiling as it would have. So Yondu counts as one of the cards that we have destroyed. It looks like they're running the Bucky Barnes, the full destruction package. And so we should, as far as I know, we should have no issues getting enough triggers to make Death basically free after a wave. And so they're going to be able to drop 2 cards on the final turn. If we can draw into She-Hulk, then we can potentially do 3 and try to outpower them there. But we'll see. We'll see if we're able to make that happen. The Los Diablos space destroys the Mirror Dimension, so it's going to stay as is. And so since they're not going to want to destroy anything in this lane anymore, I'm actually going to send them a Green Goblin here. And then that's going to kind of open that up so that we can try to do a last turn Death, a last turn Death, Chavez, She-Hulk, and then Venom comes down. As I say that they're not going to want to destroy that lane, Venom comes down, is a big 12 power Venom, and unfortunately we're not going to really be able to stop them from doing anything here. They're not going to want to destroy this one now. I'm almost certain of it. They destroyed our Chavez. We might draw into She-Hulk next turn. We have a 1 out of 3 shot of drawing into our She-Hulk. We're going to do Wave. We have Bucky Barnes queued up. Now, they are going to be able to play 2 cards here. Ooh, so it's a Death pool, a DeathWave deck. And so we are going to make it where they can only drop 2 cards. They could do maybe a Death and a Taskmaster. This list very oftentimes will run that, and we do get the She-Hulk, but we didn't save any energy because we played our Bucky Barnes, unfortunately. So we already have the win here. If they do 2 cards, they can keep the tempo advantage on us pretty much anywhere. So I'm going to drop a card into the Ruins and Los Diablos space. We might lose this one. Had I held our Bucky Barnes, we could have done 3 cards here because She-Hulk would go down to 2. Unfortunately, I wasted the 2 energy on a 1 power card. Otherwise, we could do a demon and kind of give ourselves a little bit more strategic advantage than what we had otherwise. But let's go ahead and do the death to the left. Ooh, they do an Arnim Zola onto the Green Goblin, which is okay, right? We still win the left, we tie in the right, and we win mid. If my quick maths are correct. Yeah, we win in mid by 1, we win the left pretty handily, and then we tie in the far right. I was not anticipating the Arnim Zola. Now, had it dropped the Venom and pushed it here and here, we would have lost. This would have been 17 to 18, and so they lost the 50-50. That could have swung either way. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, and I won't with the last turn wave play into a She-Hulk. All right, next up we have ZWZ, and the first location is Kiln, so we're not going to be able to do much into this lane after turn 4. So if we want a chance at winning it, we need to push some of our power there early. And then we get Olympia, which, of course, we draw into Korg's Rock right away, which is very unfortunate. But I think what we do is we do Yondu, we do Rock, and then next turn we can do our Carnage. That's going to destroy this lane. It's going to give us a pretty big Carnage in return. We can always drop a Green Goblin. Now, if they use like an Armor, ooh, so it's a Brood. So it looks like a Cerebro 2 deck. So we need to look out for the potential that they elevate this lane even further. So let's go ahead and do our Green Goblin, which is now a -4. We can do our Green Goblin. We can then send a Carnage onto the board next turn, on turn 4, along with maybe our Bucky Barnes. That should allow us to, even if they buff this lane up, I think that'll give us enough of a lead or enough of an advantage to win the Kiln location, even after any kind of buffs that they drop. They do drop a Mr. Fantastic, so if they have a Cerebro now, that's an extra card they can push, but I don't think it's going to be enough for them. So let's go ahead and do our Bucky Barnes. Let's do our Carnage. We don't have Wave. We don't have Death. So we might be looking at doing maybe a skip on turn 5. Maybe a skip on turn 5 because Titan is going to reduce our 6 cost cards down to 5. And so then we have to skip 1 less energy to be able to get a free She-Hulk. But we don't know for sure. We're going to go ahead and destroy this far left lane. Ooh, and then they drop a Storm into the Titan location. So they will be able to move 1 additional card over into Kiln. But right now, as is, this is a 2-4-6 power lane. They would have to very heavily invest here. And we do have a potential Killmonger play for our final drop. And so they did destroy the Titan location. We won't be able to do both She-Hulk and Chavez on this last turn. So maybe we end up doing something like Hood here. That will reduce her down to 2. And then we could do 2. The 6 power demon token would be 3. And then we can also drop either a Killmonger or a Deathlok, depending on what it looks like. The Killmonger would destroy our Hood. We're actually okay with this. They snapped back, but I think we're in a pretty decent spot. We're going to do Hood. That's going to drop our She-Hulk, so we can do a pretty big power play on that last turn. Let's play Hood over into the flooded lane, so we have room to do all 3 cards. We almost misplayed that very, very hard. So we're going to do Hood into the far right. They do drop a Blue Marvel, so it's now a Cerebro 3 list. Next turn, they could end up doing, they could do both a Mystique and a Cerebro. But we're going to clear 2 of their cards here. I think we're okay. Let's do the She-Hulk into the Killmonger into the Demon. So if they move this over and they do a Cerebro and a Mystique, that's going to be 4 power to every 3 power card. And so that would be 4 more power here, but they're losing 3, so it would actually only be 10. And this one would be 3, so it would actually be a 4 power lane. After destroying these cards, it would be a 4 power lane. We would offset this one, and then the extra buff from the Mystique or Cerebro would push this one up a little bit, but not enough. So I'm okay with this. I think we're going to get 8 cubes here. I think this is a pretty easy win. Why'd they move it over to the right? What are they doing? And so this is the, no, it's a Mr. Sinister. Interesting. So Cerebro and Mr. Sinister. So they went for a mid roll instead of a high roll. And so let's go with the Killmonger. That's going to destroy some cards in the left and the right. We have the Demon Token to help put us up over that edge in Olympia. Even though it was not an ideal play line, we didn't have the perfect setup. We didn't have our wave. We still found a way to utilize She-Hulk along with the extra resources that we had to find that 8 cube win condition against the Cerebro 2 list. We will take those. We will take 8 cubes anywhere we can. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Liliana. And the first location is Savage Land, and we have Killmonger in hand, which is beautiful. We're going to be able to drop Killmonger wherever we want and destroy 5 cards. That is that is immediately enough to discount our death enough to do both Wave, Death, She-Hulk, and Chavez. We'll be able to do Wave on 5, Death, She-Hulk, and Chavez on that final turn for a massive amount of power. Let's go ahead and snap. We know the only hesitation to snapping here was that they might retreat. I want to be able to showcase the potential power of this deck, and I've hit this combo many times, but it just hasn't been falling on the 5 games or so that I've played today. And so I really want this one to play out so that you guys can see just the potential power of it. That armor play was so unkind, just unnecessary. Just there's no need to be rude, right? Now, what we're kind of hoping for here is that Mirror Dimension turns into the Savage Land so that we can still get our 5 trigger. It makes it a little bit tougher than it was before, but it's still possible. Let's go ahead and play Yondu and Bucky Barnes into the far right. If this turns into Savage Land, great. If not, then we will look for a potential other win condition. Ooh, so they pull a card out with Polaris. Huge. It could have pulled out our Nova, and then we could have buffed everything up. We destroy their Professor X, which is also huge. And so this is turning into Savage Land, so we have a huge Killmonger that we can drop here. Now, it depends on where they're going to drop their whatever card they drop next. I think that they might have snapped back because they have a Cosmo, and I predict, we're guessing here, I predict that they're going to drop a Cosmo here to try to block us from destroying the Bucky Barnes. I'm actually going to play Killmonger into Savage Land. If this does not go off, we lose. If it does go off, then we win. It's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and lock that in. They do play 2 cards into Hell's Kitchen. It is the Cosmo play that we predicted. So luckily we saw around that potential play line. We destroy an obscene amount of cards. Death is now a 2-cost card. Technically we could play it this turn, but we don't want to. We want to save it as a surprise last turn play to do a really big power push. Now we can't drop Wave over here because of the Cosmo, so we could either drop it here or here. I'm going to go ahead and drop it into mid. And then we're going to skip with the extra energy. To be able to do all 3 of these cards, we need to save 2 energy going into that final turn. So that's going to allow She-Hulk to go down from 4 to 2, Death will go down from 4 to 0, and then Chavez is, of course, a 4-cost card. And so let's go ahead and lock this in. I do not think they're going to see this coming. They did play their arrow here. So if they have a leader on this final turn, that could potentially outpower us, right? They have a bit of the power diversion. So, that's a tough one. So if it's a leader play, we just lose, right? Because leader here would put them to 17. We would need to invest 2 cards here. Whatever we play here would get copied by the leader play. I just don't think we're going to be able to keep up, unfortunately. And that's if this is a leader. If it's not, then we should have a pretty easy win condition. Now, actually looking at it, I'm going to reverse the order of Chavez and She-Hulk, just in case it's the leader play, they get 1 less power. But again, if it is a leader play, they just win. But I think we're going to lock this one in. If it's a leader play, we just can't keep up. Ooh, so they play a Juggernaut, which pushes our Death over into Hell's Kitchen, which is fine. We are okay with that. The leader play was what would be an issue. Everything else that I can think of, any other play line, we were going to find that win condition. So because we were able to play 3 cards when they could play 1, we were able to find the win condition. Now, we were susceptible to a leader play, which KM Best did say he lost several games to leader plays. And that's why he added in Debris to add that additional layer of kind of clogging the opponent's boards. Luckily, the opponent did not have a leader here, and we were able to still find our win condition. But with that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And I'm going to be switching between my free-to-play account and my main account so that I can cover as many Series 4 and Series 5 cards as possible. It just may not be from the angle of a complete collection, rather looking at it from like those one-off drops so that you can build around that Series 4 card. But as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.